Today we have a show because it is Women's History Month. That is right, Adam, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So we're talking about famous gaming female protagonists, or maybe not famous, but people we want to talk about. All right, fantastic. And that leaves us plenty of time to talk about our games and female protagonists and stuff. And of course, Adam is starring and starting us off with his choice.
Okay, so it's kind of hard to choose. There are a lot, and so I kind of had to narrow it down. As far as best, I don't know if it's necessarily the best, but I might have to go with my
Or
personal
your
favorite.
favorite.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yes.
my favorite's definitely going to be. Hang on. My favorite's definitely going to be Aoife Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII, and I mean that's probably a pretty stereotypical choice for various reasons. Um, but no, but yeah, I mean, her popularity is definitely in partially due to her appearance, but I really like their personality as well. I mean, she's kind of that. It's funny. She's kind of the sexy soccer mom of the group. In that she's I've heard people describe her as she's kind of the glue that holds the whole group together. Once I mean I don't know, are we getting into spoilers territory if we're talking about a game
Of
that's came out in
course.
1997? Um,
Exactly.
definitely, yeah. Uh, After a certain character is no longer available in the game. Um, but yeah, I think we all know who. But yeah, she's kind of the one that keeps, especially the main protagonist, Cloud, in line, and she was really important to the story. She doesn't have that much dialogue, really, but she's really important because she's kind of the motivation for what set Cloud, the main character, on his journey and kind of set him in the direction that he was going. I mean, the whole reason he went to Midgar and was because of a promise that he made to her when they were children. So she was really important to him back then. He was kind of an outcast because of an incident that happened with her. And when he has his issues later on in the game, she's the one that sticks by his side. You know, the rest of the party goes off, and you get to control Sid for a while. He gets to be the kind of the main character, but she sticks by Cloud's side the whole time. If you see her interactions with Marlene and later Denzel with in the Advent Children and whatnot, you know, she definitely has that kind of really strong mom energy. And it was always kind of interesting because her and Aerith, whatever you want to call her, were designed kind of an interesting way where she was supposed to, her appearance was kind of that femme fatale, meant to appeal to kind of Western audiences. And Eris was supposed to be kind of the more conservative, kind of cutesy looking one, which was supposed to appeal to Japanese audiences. But then they flipped the personalities where Eris was more outgoing. She was more direct. She was kind of your manic pixie dream girl kind of personality. And Tifa was more of the quieter, you know, take care of everybody, kind of that mom energy. So I always thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic. And Final Fantasy in general has pretty good female protagonists. I mean, if you look at obviously Lightning, a lot of people don't like her because she lacks personality. But if you go back to some of the older games, Final Fantasy IV, Rosa was one of the characters. She was the first summoner, and now summoners are a huge deal in the series. So you know, I think they called them callers back then, but you know, the first summoner was female. Yuna from Final Fantasy X was clearly one of the most important characters. She was female. If you look at Final Fantasy VI, two of the most powerful characters are Terra and Celeste. Celeste is a super soldier, uh, similar to Kefka. She's female. You know, Terra's female. She's half human, half Esper. So Final Fantasy's been pretty good about having some leading women up in the forefront. So good on them.
And What I wanted to add on Tifa, of course, you guys are gonna find lots of counterexample to that. But right now, in my mind, gameplay-wise, it's very rare to have a female protagonist going hand to hand, like close and personal with monsters. Think of, I don't know, like Dagger. I think she's doing magic, or Quistis as a long range weapon. Yuffie is long range. Most of the girls usually have, even if in Tales of, they have chakram or magic or stuff, they're usually in the back rows. Tifa, nah, give us some gloves.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a 2 meter tall snake. I'm gonna punch your guts anyway.
Yeah.
Fair
Yeah, you
enough,
don't usually
sure.
see that monk style on a female, so
Exactly, especially when she's supposed to be the nice motherly lady.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of, like contrary to how she appears. And that's really fun. I like her.
Yeah.
And even though she appears very sexy, of course, in the latest, Advent Children or remake or stuff like this, I remember a fun time where Tifa was like the rest of the gang, 3 or 5 triangles, on top of each other. So
Yeah. And her eyes look like they're bleeding because of the bad pixels.
So that's, for you, young generation, you're lucky to know her like this. That was not the same experience for us.
We had to use our imaginations back then.
Yes, exactly.
So she's one of the there's like a set of original Final Fantasy characters, and she's one of them.
What do you mean by a set of original? Each entry is different. They're unrelated.
So they're not the same characters all the time?
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That's a common kind of a joke is, if somebody says like, "Oh, Final Fantasy 15 is coming out. Do I have to play the first 14 to understand what's happening?" So that's kind of a joke that you'll see online. But no, they're all completely unrelated. It's kind of like
But, I mean, are the characters the same though?
No. Each game is completely unrelated. The characters are completely different. It's
So
kind of
why
like
is there Cloud always Cloud is always mentioned, or Aerith is
because they're so popular. They're the more popular characters.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
The only times you have the same character reappearing would be if you have FF10 and 10.2, or 13, 31, 32, 13.3. It has to be like this. But if it's Final Fantasy 14 and Final Fantasy 16, no, not 14, sorry, because it's different. But 12, 13, 15, totally different characters.
Yeah, it's
Like,
kind of like what I would say is it's kind of like the Twilight Zone, where each episode was completely distinct, but you still have some episodes or some characters that everybody knows, like William Shatner in Carrot 2000 Feet, the guy who sees the gremlin on the wing, and everybody talks about, him, or the Last Man on Earth, the guy who breaks his glasses. These are characters that everybody knows, but they're not recurring characters. They just showed up in one episode, but that one episode happened to be really, really good, so everybody remembers that character. And these are kind of the same thing, where you have all these different Final Fantasies, but some are more popular than others. So
Tifa has only been in one Final Fantasy.
He's only been in Final Fantasy 7, yes.
Of course, you can have them again in different games, such as
Yeah, they do crossover jokes and stuff. So.
like Kingdom Hearts, for instance, or they reappear, or Dissidia, I think it was, or in offshoots, but they are not the main game.
Yeah.
It's like the Apollo missions for the Americans. There's 14 missions, but it's never the same astronauts.
I mean, given, Adam and I have lived in Asia for a while. Antoine, you're quite familiar with Asian culture, of course, being married to part of it. Why do you think, given Final Fantasy's long history, both of you, whoever wants to answer can answer, why do you think they made female characters so front and centered? Besides the aesthetic reason that in Asian culture, especially Korea as well. When I lived in Korea, was still very much a patriarchy. Japan, I believe, is still very much a patriarchy as well. Why would they make a strong female character?
Because you need to have possibility for romance in the game. That makes
some of the earlier games. You had Locke and Celeste, I suppose, so there was some
romance. No, there's few things. First, a good one or two good romance in the game will help, story long. But also, although there's a stereotype that gamers are all guys, That's not true. There's a good part of the market which is ladies, and having a good female lady or a group of mixed characters where female are as important or maybe more important than the guys, well, you attract the female players too. So that would be a shame just to have, if you need to have, take a Kratos God of War, bon, he's a guy because you need to have this Spartan athlete guy. Well, fair enough. I'm sure he could have worked with a lady as well, but you can't have a mix in this game. But in the Final Fantasy or RPG where you have a wide group, it's like a no-brainer that you have to include everyone. You have to expand your target. You have to sell your game as much as you can. So if you have some strong female lead alongside the strong male lead, yeah, I don't see why not.
And what's your take on it, Adam?
I think it's a combination of a couple things. I mean, even though yes, it's traditionally kind of a male-dominated thing, you still have legends of like say Mulan, right? A female soldier. So, there's always those kind of stories of the female soldier, Mulan, Joan of Arc, that sort of thing. So, I mean, I think in that sense it wasn't really something that they thought about as much as like, oh, we need a female protagonist as in like, oh, it's just interesting, it's different. But also Final Fantasy specifically was modeled more after D&D, especially the original one was very much D&D. And so there were definitely a lot of Western influences on there. And, maybe something like King Arthur. I don't think Guinevere ever fights, but she's a really important character to it. And so I think having, typically in these kind of stories, these kind of epics, you don't usually have a full male cast. I mean, even in like say the Odyssey, there's several women talking about, they don't talk about Joan of Arc in Asia, but I mean, but she's Western, and this was based off of the original Final Fantasies were D&D. But yeah, so I think it's just kind of something to change it up a bit. The first game, all 4 characters were male, but they were also unnamed. It's just warrior, mage, black mage, white mage, ninja. They didn't have names, but I'm not sure about the second and the third one. But by the fourth one, they definitely had some more female characters. I remember there were a set of twins. One was male, one was female. Rosa was in there. She was a caller. So again, like what Antoine said, she's in the background. She's not in the front fighting, but she's able to summon these big monsters to kind of fight for her. But yeah, I think it was just kind of that legendary kind of, sorceress kind of thing.